Chess YouTube, what is happening? Now, in case you don't know, the London opening, starting with the moves 1d4 and then 2 bishop f4, is simply unbeatable below 2000 ELO. This opening is so simple, so easy, and so strong. If you're not using it yet, you need to right now, because trust me, below 2000 ELO, this opening is simply as good as it gets. Now, the London is a very simple opening. White's idea is, first of all, going d4 and then bishop f4. Beyond that, White's idea is to get a pawn triangle with the moves c3 and e3, and then go knight f3, bishop d3, and castles. That is the main idea in the London. And to teach you this opening today, we're looking at a game my top student, Ryan Duncan, just played in this opening. He recently gained 200 ELO very, very fast using, you guessed it, the London. All right, in the game, Ryan here, playing as white, opens 1d4, and his opponent, Holez1, who looks kind of like Thor from the movies here, he responds 1d5, and then, of course, we have the move 2 bishop f4. Ryan here, sticking with the plan, the London. All right, now black here has a wide variety of responses. For example, moves like c5, knight to f6, and e6 are all very, very common. Instead here, black plays the symmetrical variation with the move bishop f5, sort of mirroring white so far in this game. All right, Ryan, as I showed him, he continues e3, controlling the center. Black goes knight f6, and now the very strong move c4, gaining space on the queen side, sort of in the spirit of the Queen's Gambit opening. Now, typically in the London, white is normally going to go c3 with this pawn instead of to c4. However, when black does go bishop f5, the move c4 becomes very, very strong. Ryan, he knows this, and plays the strongest move here, simply c4, gaining space on the queen side and pressuring the weak pawn on the d5 square. Now black here continues, e6, defending d5, sort of in the spirit of the Queen's Gambit decline opening. And now here in this position, Ryan makes maybe the first mistake of the game. It's a logical idea, but it turns out it's not the right idea right here in this position. And he plays the move c5. Now, what is the problem with c5 right here? It's very simple. On the one hand, while it does gain space on the queen side, which is a good thing, the problem is it relinquishes all tension in the center. Here on c4, the pawn is attacking d5, and there is this healthy tension in the center. However, once you go c5 like this, you give up that tension, and suddenly black has several good pawn breaks, including b6 and e5, which he can play in the very near future. So overall, c5, not exactly the strongest move here for white. All right, black continues, c6, not the strongest. Strongest here would have been b6, immediately pressuring this weak pawn on c5. Instead, c6 was played. Now we have bishop to d3, and then here black plays the move bishop g4. Now, this move here is also a little bit inaccurate. Instead, taking on d3 would have been a little bit more precise. Instead, bishop g4 is the move in the game, attacking the queen on d1, which honestly is not that big of a deal. Here, Ryan simply goes knight f3, blocking the attack on the queen, a very simple, solid move. Now, black continues, bishop to e7, and then we have h3. A very solid move by Ryan, pressuring the bishop and giving it a question. Do you want to take on f3 or go back to, say, h5 or f5? And honestly, none of these options look that attractive here for black. In the game, black plays the move bishop to h5, but it turns out this is actually not the best idea. Instead, black here has to capture on f3, giving up the bishop pair, which honestly isn't that attractive either, but it turns out it is the best move. Instead, bishop h5 played in the game, retreating. And here, Ryan Duncan, this guy is a very, very aggressive player. He simply cannot resist the urge to attack in almost any position. And here, the strongest move is simply knight bd2 developing. However, Ryan in the game, he goes for it immediately with the move g4, attacking on the king side. And honestly, this is a very typical idea in London in general. White very often gains space with g4. And here, Ryan simply pressures the bishop on g4 with a very simple but very strong move, h3. And now black has a very hard choice. What do you want to do about this bishop? Do you take on f3 or do you go back to, say, f5 or h5? Well, it turns out taking on f3 is the right move. Instead, black in the game does go back to h5, which actually is a little bit weaker. And the problem here is white has so many different ways to continue to pile on pressure on the black position. For example, knight bd2 is very, very strong here, but instead Ryan is a very aggressive player, and he finds perhaps the most aggressive idea possible in this position. And he plays the move g4, gaining space on the king side immediately. Now here, black should be going back with the bishop. Bishop g6 is the right idea, but instead, black here he decides it is time to give up the knight on f6 for the pawn. Knight takes g4 played in the game, and obviously with two roughly 800 ELO players, you will see some blunders during this game, and this move by black is simply not a good idea. White is too solid here. His king is not castled on the king side yet, and therefore sacking the knight is simply not called for. All right, Ryan, he stays cool, calm, and collected. He takes on g4, h takes g4, and black takes with the bishop. Bishop takes. All right, Ryan here. What should he be doing? First of all, that knight on f3 is under attack, and Ryan plays the very simple move, knight bd2, the standard square for that knight in the London opening in general. And from here, White actually does not have to castle kingside. Instead, he has the option of going, say, queen to c2, and then long castles, starting a deadly attack against the black king on the king side, and that is what he goes for. All right, black here. Knight d7, a solid idea, and Ryan Duncan, queen to e2 is the move. Now, this move right here is also not the most accurate. Instead, queen to c2 was a little bit better. The idea being on c2, the queen doubles up with the bishop and piles up pressure on the very weak h7 square. Beyond that, the queen on c2 is also out of the way of the attack by the bishop, meaning this knight on f3 would not be pinned, and it could go to, say, e5 or g5 later if required. Now, instead, queen e2 played in the game. Also a decent move, just not the strongest. White here still eyeing the idea of castling long on the queen side. All right, black. Knight to f6, a logical move. And finally, we do have the key move here for white. Of course, that is going to be long castles, starting the attack on the king side. Ryan Duncan playing the most aggressive move possible on the board. Here we go. And black does castles. All right, now, Ryan. He plays one final move here before starting the attack officially, and that is the move king b1. And I quite like this move, sliding the king over to b1, getting off the potentially soon-to-be open c file if black does go, for example, b6. So a very good, very solid, very simple prophylactic idea by Ryan in this game. Now, black does play the move b6, counterattacking on c5, a logical idea. And now, Ryan, what does he want to do about the attack on the pawn on c5? Do you let black take there? Do you take on c5 yourself? Do you go b4, bolstering b5? Or do you ignore it altogether and simply continue with the attack on the king side? Well, Ryan, being a very aggressive player, of course, he chooses the latter option, and he plays the move rook d to g1, which is the strongest idea, attacking the bishop and simply ignoring the pawn on c5 altogether. Ryan here going for the attack on the king side immediately, and look at these pieces. The two rooks on g1 and h1 lining up with the black king and the pawn on h7. The knight on f3 eyeing g5. The bishops eyeing the king side diagonals. Every single piece here for white is lining up with the black king, and this is not looking good for black. All right, black here. Hodles 1, the Thor imposter. What should he be doing right here? Well, it turns out the strongest move here for black is going to be g6, trying to defend. But instead, in the game, black here, he takes on c5. B takes c5 was chosen in the game, and this is a massive mistake. And Ryan, he finds a beautiful idea, an absolutely beautiful temporary sacrifice, and he plays the Greek gift. Of course, the move is bishop takes h7. Everything in his camp was calling for this move, the rook and the bishop both lining up with the pawn on h7, and here's why it works. Yes, black technically has two pieces defending, the knight and the king, and white only has two as well. However, after bishop takes, here we can see the black pieces, especially the knight on f6, are being overloaded. Here, the king obviously cannot take an h7, as then the king would be under check by the rook on the h1 square. However, if the knight captures on h7, like this, knight takes, the problem with that is the bishop on g4 is now hanging. Now, for some reason, right here, this all happened in the game. For some reason, Ryan Duncan, he does not see the idea of rook takes g4. That is just your standard 800 ELO chess for you, both sides making massive mistakes. And instead, he plays the move rook takes h7, sacking the rook on the h7 square. Ryan Duncan, what are you doing? You simply ignore the bishop on g4. Don't worry, we had a conversation about this later in our one-on-one coaching calls, but I digress. All right, rook takes h7 played in the game. Black takes back with the king. King takes, and then finally here, Ryan, again, the bishop on g4 is once again hanging, and once again, Ryan Duncan, for reasons that are beyond me, he plays the move knight g5, ignoring the bishop on g4. All right, in the game, black takes on g5, and white takes back with the queen. Queen takes. All right, so far black is up material. He has effectively the extra rook in this game, plus the extra pawns. However, Ryan does have a raging attack against the black king, and all is not lost. And actually, according to the engine, Ryan here is still a little bit better. And there are some very, very serious threats here. For example, if black were to capture on f4, that would lead to checkmate in one move with queen takes g7. So black here has to be so careful. Now, what should black be doing? It turns out the best move here for black is going to be f6, the good old-fashioned Ben Feingold counterattack, trying to defend the bishop on g5. And here's why this move is so important. Instead of that, in the game, black here plays the move bishop to h6, retreating one square like this. And here, Ryan, once again, has a very, very simple tactical idea, and that idea is going to be bishop takes h6, winning the bishop on h6. And here's why. If black takes with, say, the pawn or the king, it will lead to a very deadly attack. For example, pawn takes is met by queen g7 checkmate, and that is all she wrote. Now, once again, Ryan, for reasons that I cannot explain, he does not take on h6. Instead here, he plays the move rook to h1, which turns out is a massive blunder, and black returns the favor. Black here plays the move f5, the idea being you are attacking the queen on g4, and my student Ryan here, he plays queen to h3, sliding back and attacking the bishop. Now black plays one last blunder here, king to g6 played in the game, and Ryan does not miss his chance to crash through here with the move queen to h5, very good, attacking the king. Now queen h5, king to f6, bishop takes, then g takes, and then queen takes h6, winning the pawn on h6. Now, the king's under attack, king to e7, chosen the game. Black here, keep in mind, is still up material. He has the extra pawn and the exchange, the rook for the knight. However, white does have the ongoing attack. Let's see how he does it in this London opening game. All right, queen g7, chosen by Ryan, attacking the king. Rook f7 blocks the attack, and then queen g5, once again, attacks the king. Now, king d7, and here Ryan makes a mistake. He plays the move knight b3, which is a massive blunder. And I mean, you don't have to be a 2000 plus ELO player to see what's wrong with this move right here. Ryan Duncan, my student, he sacrificed the queen for absolutely no reason. His opponent slides over the king, attacking the queen, and Ryan, he doesn't see this. Knight b3. Now, fortunately, his opponent is only rated 772, and here his opponent ignores the queen and plays the move c4, attacking the knight. And now Ryan, from here, he finally goes beast mode and cleans up in this game. Knight c5 hits the king, king to c7, queen g3 hits the king, king b6, and then the key move a4, gaining space on the queen side, potentially threatening a5 ideas later. Ryan continuing the attack. Now we have queen g8, attacking the queen, queen to f3, ignoring the trade, and then rook to g7, doubling up the queen and the rook on the g file. Now, rook c1 is the move sliding over, rook g1, rook takes, and then king to a2. Now we have queen to g8, queen d1 sliding down, king to c7, and then knight to a6 hits the king on c7, king d6, a5, queen g2, queen d2, and now the final mistake of the game is queen to g7, and this move right here, I'm not sure if Ryan saw everything all the way to the end, if he calculated everything out, or if it was more move by move inspiration. Regardless, he finds the right idea. Queen b4 hits the king, king d7, and now the skewer. Queen to b7, skewering the king and the queen. The king moves, and now queen takes g7 is effectively game over. Black plays one more move, rook d8, and now the beautiful checkmate finish. Queen to c7, the knight, the queen, and the pawn all working together to deliver checkmate against the black king on d6. Wow, what a game by my student Ryan Duncan in the London opening, starting with 1d4 and then 2 bishop f4. And the London is so simple, even my 800 ELO student Ryan Duncan can win with this opening. If you're trying to find a new opening for white that is really easy, really fun, but also really strong, I can't recommend this opening enough. It is simply as good as it gets at the amateur level. And by the way, guys, if you want to learn this opening for white, the London system, I have a course that walks you through step by step everything you must know to play this opening at the amateur level in online chess. It covers literally every single idea for white and for black in extreme detail, and it's all free. And if you want it, go to drmikechess.com. It's my free online chess community. And once you join there, DM me the message London opening, and I will send you the link to the course. It's all free. Just go to drmikechess.com. And again, DM me London opening, and I will give you access to the course. That's all for today. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.